Hey everybody, Ben F. the Bonehead Podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 7's roster's Vampires. So, Vampires got their long-awaited refresh, and I think it's been pretty well received. They're a very fun team to play in Standard Blood Bowl. We've got a big guy now, we've got positionals, and Bloodlust is back. But the best way to play Blood Bowl is Blood Bowl 7s, and we're looking at every team available in Blood Bowl and putting together some of the most fun and or competitive rosters for Blood Bowl 7s. So let's have a look at the new Vampire team. Okay, so when it comes to Vampires for Blood Bowl 7s, there's a few things that have changed for the Vampire team. If you want to know more about them, we've covered them in the 11s videos and all sorts of places. So particularly around what the team now looks like. So strengths and weaknesses for Vampires in 7s. Literally strength and agility. So the Vampire roster is very exciting. And in 7s, you can have 4 positionals. The Vargulf is a Strength 5 Frenzy Claw piece. You've got 2 Juggernaut Strength 4 Blitzers. You've got 2 Strength 4 Throwers. And you've got 2 Movement 8 Strength 3 Runners. Not the Vargulf, but everybody else has got Ag 2+. So all of your key Vampire players have got either good Strength or good Agility. They're just fantastic all-round players. Your Thrower is Movement 6, Strength 4, Ag 2+, Pass 2+, and everybody in that roster, except the Vargeist, has got Hypno Gaze as well. So when it comes to actually the strengths of the players, well, the strengths are the positionals. And on the Blood Bowl 7's pitch, with any team, you've got a bunch of chaff linemen, and then you've got a few exciting positional pieces. In Vampires, that's how they feel in 11s, let alone 7s. So every one of your positionals that you choose for your roster in 7s is going to be twice as exciting and also twice as important. And I've picked out the Vargeist here as being its own special thing. So Strength 5, Frenzy, Claw, Movement 5, I think, for the Vargeist. It's a beautiful big guy. And the cool thing here, and we'll come to weaknesses here when it comes to Bloodlust, Bloodlust never stops you from doing anything. So you need rerolls, but you don't get them in 7s very often. What's going to happen is when you fail a Bloodlust with one of your Throwers or one of your Vargeists, you can still do everything you want to do. You can position your piece next to a lineman and go straight through armor, so stun, KO, or casualty the lineman. It's going to be risky. More often than not, I think, in 7s, the better thing to do is to just accept the failure and go and punch that guy you were going to punch. Go and do the thing you were going to do. Unless it's going to stop you from scoring or allow your opponent to score, there's going to be a lot of times, especially with that Vargeist, where actually taking the turnover at the end of the activation is just fine. It's going to leave him in the place. Now, loses tackle zones, any Boneheads, sure, but it's still there. And if you've got 2, 3, or 4 Vampires covering a 7s pitch, you've still got enough strength there to really kind of get in the way of the opponent. So Bloodlust is a weakness in that every now and again it's going to cause you a turnover, it's going to stop you from doing things, or it's just going to almightily change your plan. But it is very workaroundable. And the other downside of the Vampire team, which is not particularly unusual when it comes to positionals, is all of their positionals are very expensive. But the Thralls are cheap as chips. 40k a piece for their lineman positional means that you can actually fit 8 players into most rosters and still have a bunch of stuff that you want to do. But the Vargeist isn't cheap. Your players just are not cheap. All your positionals are 100k plus. So you do have that to balance out. And rerolls aren't cheap either because they're doubled in 7s. So you get some of what you want. And it's never going to feel enough. When it comes to Vampires and 7s, you're either going to feel like, oh man, I really wish I had another Vampire. And if you took the other Vampire, you're going to go, oh, I really wish I had another reroll. And if you took the reroll, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I had more Thralls. They're a combo team. Every now and again, your dice are going to align and they're going to be fantastic. You are always going to have an exciting game with them and you are always going to be making decisions, which is why Vampires are probably one of my favourite teams now. Anyway, 7s. Before we jump into the rosters, the way we look at 7's rosters here is, yeah, you can play 7s in League, but I don't think it's the best way to play 7s. constructed is the best way to play sevens. You agree a points limit, you agree a tournament format, so 600k for your roster with a few skills is the most exciting way to play sevens. You get that kind of quick 45-minute game where you've made choices on your roster and you can do stuff. It's really exciting. If you're playing sevens league, absolutely. So all of these rosters are your kind of 600k starting point. If your tournament allows 650, if your league allows a bit more, then you can just add a bit more of what you want. But as a starting point, these rosters work well for tournaments and for league. Anyway, let's have a look at vampire rosters. All right, we're going to start at the most logical and mid-range point here, the 2-1. So we've got 2 vampire throwers, 6 thralls, a reroll, and that brings you up to 8 players, and it comes to 580k. So you've got 20k left over for an assistant coach. When it comes to sevens is probably the best way to do this, because you might win the extra reroll, I suppose. So a couple of things to talk through with this being our very first roster. The whole idea of this one here is you've got 2 star players, 1 reroll to keep them active, and enough thralls that you can lose 1 and still kind of have a full team and still function as much as possible. The fact you've only got 2 throwers, the fact you've only got 2 vampires means your bloodlust is going to trigger less often and you might get away with it. So it's actually kind of the safest vampire roster to run in sevens. But as ever with our rosters, there's a lot of stuff that you can flex. So the vampire thrower is the same price as the blitzer and they are more expensive than the runners. So you can take 2 of any one of your core vampires. You can also bin off a thrall and have a varg instead. So if you wanted to go varg, thrower, 5 thralls and a reroll, you could absolutely do that. I think when you're playing in sevens, movement 6, strength 4, edge 2+, passing 2+ is brilliant. They are going to be your whole team. And when it comes to this, you are going to feel a little bit lackluster at times because you've only got 2 positionals. The thralls will be there, your vampires will be your one will be blitzing, one will be doing the other stuff, and it's a really cool combo, and you've got that reroll. But this would be my kind of starting point for a little bit of a safe way of playing, especially if you've got a reasonable skill package. Vampires being tier 2 means you might get 1 extra skill and you can kind of do a few extra things here, but having this be your base point I think is a really good one. Now the different players that we've got here, the vampire thrower, or the vampire blitzer, and the vampire runner, they all absolutely love the skill pro. If you can put a regular skill on any one of those guys, I really think, unless you want the extra team reroll and you can squeeze it in on the vampire thrower by taking leader, then actually pro is going to help you. It's going to save you a little bit from the bloodlust, and most times it's just going to give you that extra safety net. So pro is a fantastic skill on all of those pieces. The thrower though, it's a strength 4 edge 2+ piece. You can even block, it's going to be great. You can give dodge, it's going to be great. Leader potentially for your team, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think pro is the best way to go. When it comes to the vampire blitzer, having that juggernaut means that actually strip ball combos really nicely with it, but again I wholeheartedly recommend pro or block or dodge, because they're going to be doing that kind of stuff. He does have strength access, so you've got guard, mighty blow, and potentially frenzy as well, but actually pro is probably the first thing you need to do. Now when it comes to the vampire runner, pro is obviously a very good skill, especially because she's going to likely to be on her own. Now the vampire runner is a really tricky one in the vampire roster, with bloodlust triggering at the end of the activation. She can't run off and score, and you've got movement 8 piece there, so you kind of go, ooh, movement 8 piece, we'll move her up, give her the ball, run off and score. Oh, she's rolled bloodlust and I'm stuffed because now I have to end my turn next to a thrall, or she just boneheads and drops the ball. So having the vampire runner get pro to keep that just that 3+ reroll for your failed bloodlust is going to be infinitely better. It's not automatic, it's always going to be a thing, but do you know what, it's much better, and it's going to take the edge off. And then the second skill for the vampire runner, or if you just want to go turbo offense, is dodge, because a movement 8, strength 3, edge 2+ piece with dodge is just phenomenal. Now all of those vampires have got hypno gaze. Hypno gaze, you can wander up to a dude, you roll agility, -1 for every other tackle zone you're in that isn't the target, and if you succeed they lose their tackle zone. That means it switches off some of their skills, which is really useful if you're going to be punching stuff, but most importantly if they're screening or they've built a cage, that player just doesn't really exist anymore. And then if you've got 2 vampires with reasonable strength, i.e. strength 4, then you can just fade the edge of that cage off walk in, pop the ball out. So it's going to be a really good 1-2 punch with this roster, and that reroll is going to help you when you really, really need to. So I like the 2-1 as a starting spot. It's not the most exciting, but it's going to give you the most opportunities to succeed, or at least just less opportunity to fail. But we're going to turn up the fun a little bit. So the 3-0 build, and we've gone with the Vargeist as a starting point here because it kind of demonstrates what you can do. So this one comes in at 570 out of your budget of 600. So again, potentially an assistant coach. We've got the Vargeist and we've got 2 vampire throwers. Now, everything I said earlier about the vampire throw being 110k and the blitzer being 110k and the runner being 100k, so you can drop a thrower for a blitzer or runner if you want to, you absolutely can. The difference is the vampire thrower has got the best passing. Probably doesn't matter all that much, but it's got strength 4 and the best bloodlust of 2+, so it's just the most consistent. And in 7s, there's not going to be a ton of skills going around, so it's going to be beneficial, especially in this roster where you've got the Vargeist. Now, the Vargeist is triggering bloodlust 3+, not bloodlust 2+, so you're going to want to be blitzing and blocking with him. Actually, you're probably going to be able to do that, and he's got a good enough effective target bubble that actually that's going to be fine. And like we said, if you fail bloodlust, you can still do what you want to do, but if you don't chomp on a victim at the end of your activation, it's going to be a turnover. So the Vargeist will never let you down, but it might cost you the end of your turn. But this is 7s. Everybody's going to be failing stuff all the time anyway, so at least you get to make a 2-die block followed by another 2-die block because he's a strength 5 frenzy piece. So we like the Vargeist. And in this one, you've got those 2 throwers and you've got that Varg to be your heavy hitter. This roster is really exciting, especially if your tournament packet or league packet allows you to get and sneak leader in onto one of your throwers. Then this roster is starting to look like the one to beat. You've got 1 Vargeist, 2 vampires, 5 thralls, so 8 players, 570. It gives you that. I've got 1 spare player, and if I can sneak leader onto a thrower, I've got that extra bit of leader reroll in there as well. If you don't have leader reroll, then you are going to be definitely a victim of bloodlust, but position yourself well. And when it comes to the Varg, activate him last unless you're willing to murder one of your thralls to make whatever you want to do happen. Be aware that the Vargeist could end your turn at any point. But most of the time, especially in a 7s game where you've got a strength 5 piece, he's got claws as well, it's going to be worth ending your turn with a Vargeist blitz. It's going to be a 2+ anyway. So that's going to be really cool. And the good thing about this roster is, yeah, you don't have the integral reroll there for your team, but you've got the Vargeist doing horrible things, and then you've got 2 2+, I was going to say Edge 4, retro, strength 4 pieces in your vampire throwers. So this is a real powerful roster. You do lose that reroll. So you lose that time where every now and again your Vargeist is just going to roll a 2 on a move, and that's going to be the end of your turn once he's moved. Just suck it up, I guess, to put a vampire pun out there. Now, the cool thing about the Varg is if you do end up with a skill on him, he's just chomping at the bit for a bit of guard, for a bit of mighty blow, for juggernaut if you're going to be blitzing with him, especially in 7s, especially where you want to kind of capitalize on frenzy. I love jugs. Brawler in the 7s format is less effective. He is going to end up in scrums, and that's kind of where Brawler comes into its own. Just ask any Black Orc coach. Jugs is probably the best. Mighty Blow is going to be very effective, especially as he's got claws, because if you're coming up against an elf team or a Skaven team, him landing 4-die blocks, dropping guys with Mighty Blow, getting that armor 8+ for most of their players is going to cause removal. And if you're up against a bigger player with better armor, then actually breaking the armor on 8+ with claws and then having +1 to the follow-up roll is pretty dirty. So Vargeist, I do love Mighty Blow. Jugs is going to be more consistent, but Mighty Blow is going to be more mighty. When it comes to the thralls, they're linemen, so if you get a chance to put a random general on them, do it. Unless you can put that skill somewhere else. Block is good, kick is good, especially in 7s. So it's a really mixed bag. I like this roster. This is the most exciting roster for 7s. It's going to be less consistent, but you're kind of replacing that internal consistency of a reroll with a Vargeist, and that is not bad. Or you can go full bloodlust. So 4-0. 4 vampires, no rerolls. So the place we're going to start with this one is 600k. So this is your entire budget. 2 throwers, 2 blitzers / runners. Again, they're all the same bracket cost, so you can afford 4 of any of those 6 choices. And you've got 4 thralls. So you are all in on bloodlust here. This is either going to be awesome or absolutely horrific. Depends. If you are pretty confident you're not going to roll ones, then this roster is just going to automatically win most games. I personally have seen different things from Blood Bowl on the on the front of not rolling ones, so I wouldn't recommend this roster as like a beginning one. But actually, if you've got a 2 or 3 game sevens evening, this will be a ton of fun for you. You may not win loads, but they're going to combo off and have one awesome game, and then they are literally going to eat themselves in game 2, and that's cool because that's what this team does. Now you got a little bit of flex here. You can actually drop your Thrall, go down to 7 players and upgrade one of your vampires into a Vargeist as well. So if you really want to go max chomp, you can go Varg, Thrower, Blitzer, and just absolutely destroy yourselves. It's going to be turnover central, but each one of those players is so powerful that if they function properly, they can be extremely overwhelming, especially in sevens. Now sevens is so sparse. There's generally speaking, there's always open space, and that's where these players absolutely shine. They're not movement 9, sure, but if you've got a runner at movement 8, that's awesome. Otherwise, they're movement 6, strength 4, so any open space becomes a profitable block most of the time. And if you can upgrade and bring the Vargeist in, it's going to be awesome. The downside is if you bring the Vargeist in, you're only going to have 3 Thralls. So 4 vampires, 6 turns a half. That's going to be 4 ones, and then you can have 4 ones in the second half. So you're going to need 8 bites at least. Statistically, 8 bites. You've got 3 Thralls. They're not going to survive that. So you're going to suffer some turnovers, and then probably, honestly, in half 2, you're likely to be down to 5 players. Your vampires and 1 very holy Thrall. Okay, so if I was going to a tournament or just having a little sevens night with no skills, with 1 skill, 2 skill, Vargeist roster is just awesome. The 3-0 Vargeist here, it will just give you that absolute hit of vampires without crippling you. There are going to be some games where this absolutely tanks, however, because you've got no kind of backup, but this is going to teach you some really good skills with the vampire roster. It's going to teach you when to accept a bloodlust turnover. It's going to teach you when to sequence your things, and you've got 2 of what are definitely in the top 5 players in the game, the vampire thrower, and you've got one of the best big guys out there as well, and you've got 1 bench, which is pretty cool. So if I was going to play sevens, I would probably play this roster. And by probably, I mean definitely. And I went into this video thinking the 2-1's probably the most sensible one, but actually, to heck with that. 3 vampires. I want a big guy. I want 2 of the best throwers, second best throwers in the game. Ooh, Skaven. And 5 Thralls. This is a ton of fun. And now I need to trick the guys into playing some sevens. In fact, I wonder if Ben's free this week. Right, I'm going to wrap up. Let me know which roster you're picking. I think it's this one. And if there's a different one that we've missed out, yes, I know you can take all Thralls, but in sevens, all Thralls desperate measures is quite entertaining, but I don't know. If you're playing vampires, you kind of want to play vampires, I think. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.